in this competition is already a world champion.
Symmetry is an encompassing package. It encompasses.
But what I'm really dying is to share with the doctor some things about my peptide program I use, some of my athletes use. I'm just very curious what he thinks about.
We could talk about peptides. So before you guys start, Doc, can you kind of explain what peptides are to the viewers?
All right. So like I said, at the end of the day, anything over what you're looking at is amino acids. Okay. So when you have peptides, it's a chain of amino acids. Okay. Anything over 50 amino acids is considered a protein. Anything under 50 amino acids is considered a peptide. Okay. And that's the world that we're dealing in, is peptides. As far as FDA regulations, any peptide that is over 43 amino acids, they're making us write prescriptions, or they're trying to push them through for the name brand drug companies. Under 43 peptides, your compounding pharmacies, or pharmacies, meaning they can make these products, can make them, and we can prescribe them through compounding. Okay. And so what peptides truly are is they're signaling molecules. So what they're going to do at the receptor level and then at a DNA level is begin to alter and change cell physiology, if that kind of makes sense. So it's, instead of like a hormone that's going to go in, this is a signaling molecule. And what's nice about your peptides, and I'm a big proponent, because I use them in everything from performance to immunity, to cancer, to fertility. There's so many different uses for different peptides that, you are stimulating your body to do the work instead of overriding the body by giving it a hormone or some type of pharmacological agent that's overriding the physiology.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know they had all those functions. We talked about it. I was in Vegas a couple weeks ago, but we have peptides, everything from for brain, for stimulation of immune system, actually helping to fight cancer, killing bacteria and viruses. I've used tons of them with my COVID patients. Well, I've used 2 or 3 different peptides for my COVID patients, and immediate results. So yeah, they're just phenomenal.
Now, let me ask you this. Are we talking about size and strength gains by using them?
Yeah, there's certain ones that are for performance. Absolutely. So you have, let's go from the performance perspective. So you have what's called growth hormone releasing hormones, and then you have growth hormone releasing peptides. So what's nice is they're going to stimulate the pituitary to release either more growth hormone releasing hormone, or going to cause you to stimulate just the release of more growth hormone in general. Which is beautiful. What's nice, like with growth hormone, the longer you're on growth hormone, obviously there's some side effects that I look at, which can cause your cortisol to rise, which is a stress hormone, can cause your prolactin to rise. Remember, prolactin is a hormone that females make to make milk, but prolactin also decreases your dopamine, which is kind of your primitive brain hormone, kind of like your caveman brain hormone, right? It also can increase what's called aldosterone, which is toxic to the vascular system. The peptides don't do this. You get the same effect. You're getting pretty close to the same effect, but without the negative side effects. I will have to say personally, because like Steve was saying, and Jason knows this, there's nothing that I ever given my patients that I haven't done myself. And then having been a professional athlete and understanding the use of anabolics compared to what peptides, and then me delivering it to my patients, I know how these things work. And I can say definitively for myself, you're talking anywhere from 70 to 90+% as good as growth hormone, but you're also looking at about 10% the cost though.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Hmm.
It's beautiful.
Hmm.
You know, but
When it comes to hormones, how long would you recommend for a big bodybuilder to take it before he takes a break?
on the peptides,
No, the GH itself, the complete one.
so what we've always done research wise, I usually, if I do prescribe growth hormone, usually 16 weeks. And then I want them, I 4 months on, and then at least 6 weeks off after that. And why I say this is usually within that first 4 to 6 weeks, from an aesthetic standpoint, you really don't see the results. Physiologically, you will. You'll start to rest better. You recover better. You'll see that the clientele says, man, I'm starting to get very hungry. Because remember, growth hormones stimulating ghrelin, which is in the brain and in the stomach to induce hunger. And then what happens is now all that comes into play. Then when you start getting into that 8, 12, and 16 weeks, that's when the aesthetic part really comes into play.
So I was always, very confused back in my days. When do you take it, So I used to take for 12 weeks, 4 units of growth hormones. Then I took a 4-week break. So there was so much information. Take it at night time. There can be carbs in your system. There shouldn't be carbs in your system. Take it in the morning. Take it in the middle of the workout. So I started to kind of split them because I was so confused. So I did a little bit when I went to the bathroom the first time at night. I did a little bit an hour before breakfast, and the small amount, like a unit, 45 minutes into the workout. How far off was I there?
It's funny, like, as I love this show and I love talking to you guys because we weren't that far off. You see what I'm saying? It's, I did all this, and I had enough of a brain left to be able to go to school and become a doctor, and come to find out, we weren't that far off on most of this stuff, just a little bit, but not bad. No, so you're right. End of the story, the way, because growth hormone has a very short half-life in the body. So ideally, I tell people, if you can do it 3 times a day, that's the best. Right when you get up in the morning, somewhere right prior to a workout, and then at night before you go to bed. But see, what happens with, like you talk about the misinformation and confusion, is when you start using these type, like growth hormone or peptides, you have to understand how to create the most optimal environment for them to work. Because remember, you guys know this. So if I take growth hormone within 30 minutes, if I eat a carbohydrate, think about it. Remember, what does growth hormone do? Growth hormone goes to the liver and converts into what? IGF-1, which is insulin growth factor 1, which is going to hit the insulin receptor and drive everything into the cell. But remember, if you eat a carbohydrate, what's going to produce insulin? Your pancreas is. Remember, insulin is going to keep you alive. So what do you think is going to win when it comes to receptor battling? Insulin or IGF-1? Insulin's going to work, so you've down-regulated the growth hormone efficiency, all right? Second of all, when you eat sugar, and from doing your growth hormone, you eat sugar, you release a hormone from the pancreas as well called somatostatin. And somatostatin is an inhibitor. So it will inhibit the growth hormone efficiency. So you need to be fasting for 35 minutes to 60 minutes after you take the shot of growth hormone so that it works, you get the conversion, and so it works at the cellular level better. So a lot of times what I'll do with people now is, because we release the most amount of growth hormone in the nighttime when we're sleeping, I'll use the peptides in the morning. And if somebody's doing growth hormone, I'll have them do growth hormone in the morning, but I'll have them use the peptides in the evening.
Wow.
And my first I always read about peptides. I read everything I could, the last 10 years. My biggest issue was, for a long time, I never believed I can get decent quality peptides. So that's why I was waiting for a very long time till I had somewhat of an assurance, finding out that our local hormone doctor orders from the same company I do, that this might be okay. My first try, there was about myself. It was many years ago. I wanted to burn some fat for my next vacation. I went to Norway. So I started to use Fragment 176, 191.
Yes.
I had my last carb meal at 2 p.m., then a little bit of protein at 4 p.m. and did my cardio at 6 p.m. So I think I used 250 micrograms just before my cardio. And I don't know if it was me refocusing on diet and training or how much it helped, but I felt like I had tremendous success with it. Was it the peptide or was it just my refocusing on diet?
Peptide, but both. I'm going to answer your question in two parts, if that's okay. First of all, like, so your Fragment, or now what they've done is like GH Fragment or AOD, which is advanced obesity drug. What's the beauty behind that peptide? What it truly does is it actually goes into the fat cell and burns it and destroys it. I also, you want to hear this, for your Fragment, I'll inject it into joints along with hyaluronic acid, because what it does, it'll burn the fat cell around the joint. And what's in fat cells? Stem cells. It'll actually cause your body to release stem cells into the joint by which I inject it. So outstanding there. What you did to make the Fragment work good is what I want to talk about. You put the best environment for that peptide to work. So it's kind of like if I come to you and say, hey, I have the best tomato crops, let's go ahead and plant them. But you got the worst soil ever. No matter how good my crop is, if I don't put it in a good environment, it's never going to grow. Same thing with peptides. You have to understand, to maximize peptides, there's a wide range of things you have to do with them. You can just take, a growth hormone releasing peptide or the Fragment, but if you don't put it in the best environment to succeed, your results are not going to be as efficient as what you would expect them to be.
So, hey, Doc, if you don't mind me asking a question, that's one of the reasons I did a blood test today too, is I'm looking at some different avenues and looked into a little bit about that, not a lot. But my issue is, and this is a question, my training has really become really good. I've done it. My training is really good right now compared to what it was years ago. Really working hard and just getting back into like just the way I love it, because I just still love the training. But I have injuries. So my chest, I have to do specialized type of workout because I have scar tissue buildup in both shoulders. My lower back from years of heavy squats with a guy like me was hard. So the one thing that's really helped me, of course, is the yoga, but I still have to work around these injuries. So you're probably already going to, my question is going to be answered by when you answer it. I already probably know what the answer is, but what are your thoughts are for me to take something to help that become better in the future?
Perfect. So great. One of the first peptides that I use from a pain management orthopedic regeneration perspective, we use a peptide called TB500 or thymosin beta 4, or another one called BPC 157, which stands for body protective compound. What those two do are phenomenal for someone, what you just said, scar tissue. So what TB500 and BPC 157 does, first of all, TB500 we extracted from the thymus gland, which is behind the sternum, right? So that's where all your natural killer cells are. But the great thing about this peptide is it not only goes in, it decreases inflammation. It actually goes in there like with a sandblaster and blows off fibroblasts, which are your scar tissue. Also, it induces what's called angiogenesis, which is brand new collateral blood supply, okay? And then from a muscle perspective, it regenerates actin and myosin, which are the muscle proteins that you need to grow and have performance. Phenomenal. I'm telling you, if you did TB500 and it's nice about it, you don't have to go into the joint. You can use a regular insulin syringe and you just shoot really kind of roundabout where it hurts and watch over a 90-day period how it gets better. Because what's great about these peptides from a healing perspective is, remember, they're very small molecules. So inflammation is the carrier. Quick example is like I was working on a guy, he was a baseball player and he hurt the inside of his arm, like Tommy John. So I was doing TB500 in therapy on his right elbow, medial elbow. And he was like, and like 3 weeks later, he's like, my left shoulder's never felt better. So by working here, it still has a residual effect and goes up here. And so, no, they're phenomenal. So somebody like yourself, again, We're all moving through the aging process and we still want to train good. But you have to understand, we've got to now put more in the tank to optimize what we want to do because we're not 25, 35 years old anymore. You know what I'm saying? So that workout's going to take more out of you. So you need to start to put a more protective moat because you damn sure at 60 years old can still start getting phenomenal results. My oldest client is 77 years old. And I still, over the past year, I don't train, but medically putting him on this stuff and then having him work with my trainers, he was able to put almost 50 pounds on his bench and he put 11 pounds of pure muscle on. That's at 77.
Nice. Yeah.
Despite
that's
sarcopenia.
That's a problem with a lot of your older people today, sarcopenia, man. It happens so much.
Sarcopenia. Sarcopenia.
But you know, with that said, JP and Phil, you guys have experienced any like joint pains and stuff when you're exercising? You have any old injuries?
Never. I've never had injuries, which
Well,
is good.
My shoulders are not great, but it's not really a problem. But I'm a big fan of PPC 157 or 157. I have a question about that.
Yeah.
So I started to use it a few years ago. I fell off a quad, some desert vehicle, and my back was really bad for a while, and my collarbones both. I don't know exactly if they were broken or not. I don't think so. And it's just 6 months later, I was still doing very light weights on the incline. So that's when I tried PPC the first time. I just injected it 200 micrograms, 250 microgram right on top of it, pretty much twice a day, also each side once. And it was 80% better in a pretty short time.
Yeah.
So should I have used TP 500 or is there any difference?
No. So what I normally tell my patients is like, so if you have, like, say we're working out and you came to me like, oh man, I was training the other day, I hurt my shoulder. I would immediately use BPC 157 for the acute phase. Then if it was bothering you later on, I use TB 500 more for chronic.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
So how long can you use that, or does it matter?
So normally what I tell people to do is the way that I break it up in my pharmacy does my dosing, but I do 20 days on, 20 days off, 20 days on, 20 days off. Or if like it's an injury, like what I'll do is do BPC 157 for 20 days, TB 500 for 20 days, reassess. If I need to do another round, we'll do another round.
So my wife has heavy issues with migraines, her neck. So she's doing Botox injections for it. They did some nerve blockages, and it's hard to say if anything really helped. And although I'm not really big into injecting my wife with any experimental stuff, I'm not really the expert for, but I did start to use PPC on her, just 3-4 times a week. And it seems to be the only thing really have worked, but so not for very long, but it does help her for a few days. So I should just I could go 20 days
yeah,
off.
You can go 20 days, absolutely. And for all you guys with your clients in training, with the dieting and all that, a lot we've talked about before, but GI health, BP 157 is absolutely phenomenal for GI health. That's actually where we got BPC 157 from, was from the gastric juices of a dog. That's where we first discovered BPC 157. But BPC 157 helps to fatten up the small intestinal cells and helps to decrease the propensity of leaky gut or gut dysbiosis. So again, with all us, with your guys dieting and eating a lot of food and training, BP 157 is a great thing to put in the system to help the whole digestive process. I give BPC 157 a lot of times for people with like ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, diverticulitis. I'll put them on BPC 157.
So then when you use it for something like that, it wouldn't really matter where you inject to.
You just put it right. You can just do it sub-Q in the belly because it's going to go where it needs to. Yes, sir. All
right, very good. Then another peptide which intrigued me greatly, especially when I read about the benefits for the testicles, was LR3.
Yep.
So what are you trying to tell us, JP?
I'm not even going to go there.
Okay, I had to ask.
started using LR3 in the morning or before and after workout, like 4 weeks, followed by 2 weeks off. What do you think about LR3?
LR3 is good, and another good one. And I use it again. I actually somehow, some way, as an athlete, then I open up this clinic. So then I take care of former athletes or people who've run gear. And now everybody wants. It's funny, once they get done, then everybody wants kids. So somehow, some way, I fell ass backwards into fertility. I don't know how I did it, but now I'm the fertility expert in town because I can get the babies all over the place. But one of the great peptides, the LR3 is good, but one that I've been really more leaning towards is what's called kisspeptin, like kiss peptin. And what's nice is it actually stimulates the pituitary to increase LH and FSH production. So you're not only increasing your own testosterone, but you're inducing spermatogenesis. So I'll use kisspeptin. And so you guys have heard this from PCT. You've heard of Clomid. I use N-clomiphene. It's a molecular change in Clomid. Because remember, Clomid is a SERM, so it's a selective estrogen receptor modulator. It will turn on and off estrogen receptors in the body, and clomiphene doesn't do that. It has just a direct effect on the pituitary. And what's nice is I've had some phenomenal results with getting guys with very, very minimal, semen analysis, very low testosterone, quite a bit of atrophy, up to where we've had, we're batting about 95% on fertility so far. So,
hey Doc, isn't it safe to say that that's one of the biggest issues and problems or challenges in America today, because it's some of the top supplements and hormone replacements for men are testosterone products, because most men's testosterone are very low. We know that.
Yes.
And that's the years of our degradation of our society and the food and everything. So I'm a big advocate. I've been studying that a little bit more now, and I totally agree that we all need to have some sort of a booster as we get older, because our testosterone levels normally are not where they are at our age anymore.
They're not. And what you're seeing, and this is what's really sad is we can all take a step back and think 30, 40, even, 45 years ago when we were 18, 19, 25 years old. What were we doing? Training and chasing anything that moved. And if it didn't move, we'd still hump it, right? I mean, seriously. I literally now, honestly, then this is what's scary, like you said, Steve, about the environment and everything. I just had a 19-year-old gentleman come to my kid. I call him a kid because I'm older now. A 19-year-old kid come to my practice, actually played football at a major university, feeling bad, never took anabolic steroids, never took recreational drugs, nothing. Ran his testosterone level. It was 90.
Wow.
Which is awful. I mean, my guys on replacement therapy are usually between 8 and 1200. He's 19 years old and he was at 90. I'm going to tell you, I probably have 20% of my hormone replacement patients are under the age of 35.
Let me ask you this, Doc. That would be your diet more than anything else, right?
Yeah. You're right. Diet, environmental factors, lack of, really what ends up being is, refined sugars, preservatives, all that.
I mean, I see a generation.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I see a generation of kids who grew up on Cocoa Puffs, McDonald's, Burger King, Pizza Hut, and they don't eat anything else, and their parents give it to them.
Mm-hmm. We get it. You know what? There you go. I got one for you because I had to go to the store the other day, which gives me anxiety. I was at Target and I was by myself shopping, and there was two little girls in a cart, and one was pretty heavy set. Mom was heavy set. The sister was heavy set, and the girl, she was probably about 10 or 11. She started screaming at the top of her lungs and crying. And I was like, that girl's too old to be crying. She wanted a chocolate bar. So she started throwing a fit. But guess what Mom did? Not only got her one chocolate bar, but proceeded to buy two more chocolate bars.
Wow.
You see, you're just perpetuating this over and over and over again. And Jason will tell you, Steve, from my perspective, you're right. I'm very conservative as far as it comes to hormone replacement. I'm one of the first guys that will talk when I explain this to people. If I see any apprehension or even age that I'm not sure of, I'll talk them out of testosterone replacement therapy. I probably write more in clomiphene for patients Then I do testosterone for all intents and purposes because I've had phenomenal results. My assistants here at work, I got two of them. One's 31 and one's 33. They're on enclomiphene, not testosterone, and they're sitting at 12 and 1300 testosterone levels. Wow. You'd be happy to do that if you're taking TRT. And they're at 1300 with,
True. The way I eat, there's nobody that eats like I do. I'm a very clean eater. I'm a 95% plant-based eater. Everything's non-GMO, organic, you name it. And I take care of myself like there's no tomorrow, man. But even with that said, because of the nutrients in our foods today compared to 50, 60, 70 years ago, I know that I'm not getting to where I should be. And that's why I had to do this. And so I'm really looking forward to finding out where my blood test is and getting on a program, because I know that I need it. And so does most of the men in this country.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Women too, for that matter.
Mm.
Yeah.
Now so, Doc, on real quick on peptides.
Yeah.
Side effects. Is it just like any supplement? Take too much? Is there liver kidney issues with it or anything like that?
No. Here's the deal. If done, because I'm going to kind of explain, if done correctly. First of all, unlike other stuff we're used to, be it pain pills, steroids, medications, when you use peptides, more is not better. Remember, it's a signaling molecule. The dose that is prescribed that I write for via working with my pharmacies is the dose. So like JP was saying, like, hey, I was taking 250 mics of this, perfect dose. Because if you want to take 500, guess what's going to happen? It's not going to work. The 250 is going to work. So you're just wasting it. So that's the first thing. I love it because more is not better. More is actually not really going to do anything except waste your money. From a second perspective, what's beautiful about peptides is they're amino acids. So how do they break down? They break down into active or inactive amino acids. If they're inactive, the body will convert it to an active amino acid, and it'll go right back into the building process. So no, the side effects are very, very minimal because you're, like I said, you're increasing your own biochemistry and physiology. You're not overriding it. You follow me?
Yeah.
So, but one really quick caveat, one of the mistakes that people make, and they don't know, that they stay on the same peptide for too long. I only keep my patients on a peptide for 8 weeks and switch it, because what can happen is the body can make what's called antibodies to it and downregulate the receptor. So what I'll do is I'll take I'm just going to use a couple names. Like if I use what's called ipamorelin for performance, I'll put them on that for 8 weeks, build a program so that it works efficiently. Then I'll take them off of it for 4 weeks, and I might put them on IGF-1 LR3, put them on that for 8 weeks, pull them off for 4 weeks, then maybe put them on what's called ibutamorin. So I have enough peptides, which is beautiful, that we can do 8 weeks on, 4 weeks off throughout the next year and a half and never go back to the first one. So you're never hitting the same thing. So that's another beautiful, beautiful thing. Again, peptides, we have peptides for sleep, have peptides to increase stem cell formation in the brain. I mean, just so many wide range of things to just optimize a person in general, not only from performance, just as a human being.
So quickly before I want to move on to another peptide. So I can do the LR3 for 8 weeks. I don't have to stop after 4 weeks
No.
And should I now switch from the LR3 to the kisspeptin?
What I would do is do the 8 weeks of that, take 4 weeks off, and then go to kisspeptin. Yep.
There's another peptide which is really intriguing to me, and I know a lot of athletes who take it during also kind of in the 4 weeks on, 2 weeks off cycle, twice a week only. I'm curious what you think about it. It's the PEG-MGF.
Oh, the mechanic growth, mechanic growth factor with PEG. It's beautiful. So here's your caveat in doing it really well. You take your mechanic growth factor with the PEG, and you also can not combine it in the same syringe, but you cycle it with IGF-1 LR3. So this is the deal. Remember, your mechanic growth factor will help your body from a growth perspective release more stem cells. The IGF-1 will in turn cause those stem cells to grow. It's a phenomenal, phenomenal combination. I got so many people on it and they love it. They absolutely love it.
Wow.
Then always telling you, my athletes, you guys are on good hands. Just kidding. There's another one I'm somewhat skeptical of, but I do use it with athletes. It's during the whole cycle. It's the IGF-DES.
Yeah. So the DES, there's actually like 3 different IGF-1s and receptors that it hit. And that's enough. I'm more like, I love the IGF-1 LR3, the long receptor grade 3. That's the one that I use. I stick with that one.
So you believe that spot injection, it does not work?
You know, I've done it before. I wasn't overly impressed. I didn't like, oh, I hit my pecs with IGF-1. That was a good. Now I still just do it subcutaneous in my belly and let it go systemically. I never really got me personally never saw anything out of it doing it that way.
Quickly back to the LR3 PEG MGF. When it comes to the time of the day or when to inject, is there any issues with that?
No, what I normally did with the mechanic growth factor is I usually inject it at night. And then like when you do like usually night when I do that one.
There's an athlete who was bringing something to my awareness, and after I started reading about it, there was one study made with women, but it was stopped after a short time, and after what I read, I told them to stay away from it, and I'm curious what you think about it and what it really does. It's called ACE 031.
That one I'm not that familiar with that. The only one that's close is what's called ACAR, which is AICAR. And what that one's going to do from a perspective of biochemistry, it's going to increase what's called AMPK, which increases ATP production and decreases insulin resistance. So in turn, you're able to bring more stuff into the cell to make the cell work better. That's the closest one I do. And I give that to a lot of my heart patients as well.
And GH and LR3 works very well together. Is that correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Split them up. Yeah, 100%.
All right. That's very, very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Damn, guys, I've been away from the sport for too long. You're giving me some great insight
Yeah.
here.
JP, you got a lot of your clients on peptides?
I'm very big into peptides. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
It's the wave. It's the wave of the future, and not in a goofy kick way. Like a fad. It's here. It works. The research shows it. It's phenomenal. You can it's funny. You can go to the NIH. You can go to PubMed. You can read the research articles, true peer-reviewed research articles on how these things work. Like with thymosin alpha-1, that's another immune boosting peptide. Well, guess what? It worked beautifully on COVID. Guess who's forcing it away? Government is, because it's working beautiful. It's hard to find. I can get it, but it's hard to find.
Right.
But it works beautifully.
So with that said, Doc, when you're talking about the peptides, guys, and I've read a little bit about them, obviously we do a lot more research on this. So the only way to get this is through prescription by getting a blood test, correct?
Well, you can. There's underground that you can get them out. Yeah, be careful. You never know what you're going to get. That's my thing. I always tell my patients, because as a clinician, look, you don't know what you're getting.
Right.
Me, I have compounding pharmacies that I will write the prescription, so you know that you're getting 99.9% pure peptide. Because what was funny, guys, and you'll remember this probably in the early to mid 2000s in America, almost, I think it was 70 to 80% of the growth hormone that was running around in North America was GHRP6, which is a peptide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you remember back in the day, you used to get the little white box with either like the red cap or the blue cap or the green cap. All that was GHRP6. Yep. So.
But let me ask you this. So the competitors today, like the pros, taking this along with everything else they're doing. The
combination is beautiful. I just personally, a lot of the athletes don't know about them. The coaches don't know about, they've heard about them, but where you get them is because I don't know. Like, I don't know enough in the crowd, but I think a lot of people still think they're bullshit. Oh, this doesn't work good. It does. You got to remember, insulin is a peptide hormone. Growth hormone's a peptide hormone. We have over 700 different peptide hormones running through our body on a daily basis. You understand what I'm saying? So I think what happens in the sports world, you have some really in tune people, but I think a lot of people are like, well, it's not growth hormone, so it can't be as good. No, it is as good, and it can be as good, but knowing how to do it correctly.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And as you guys know, I train a lot of women. With women, you have to be extremely careful when it comes to steroids. Mm-hmm. So, or rather push this than, women, can go sour or downhill very quickly when you do the wrong steroid combinations or too long or too high dose. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I started to really look into it. I mean, originally it was to help myself, of course, but I'm a big proponent of peptides. I absolutely love what they do. So I'm happy we have the doctor here talking about it.
Now, what about SARMs? And I'm sure we could talk an hour on them too.
Man.
Are they basically the same, or is it different, Doc?
They're different. They are different. So SARMs are selective androgen receptor modulators. So what they're going to do is they're going to stimulate and turn on and turn off specific androgen receptors. Okay. What we've looked study-wise is, again, you have to be careful with these because they will still shut down testosterone production. So it was amazing to see, like, I would have people on SARMs when we were doing research and be big, strong, good libido, feel incredible, making gains, run their levels, testosterone 80, 85, 106.
Wow.
But being stronger and ever. It got to be, I'm not the biggest proponent of SARMs. There's a couple, there's what's called ostarine that works pretty well as far from a physiological muscle gain. One that I tell a lot of my patients is it's called cardarine, which is GW 501516. Now, from a cardiac perspective, phenomenal, because it's one of the only things I've ever used myself and given my cardiac patients that helps to raise HDL cholesterol and improve cardiac endurance. So that I'm a proponent for.
Most of the SARMs today, the only way to get them is online. So you're already dealing with.
You're already. There's only 2 SARMs that I can write for, and it's funny. It's like how we were talking about earlier, like with the anabolic steroids. The studies still have shown that obviously anabolic steroids don't affect the brain chemically. They're not mind altering, right? But there are your 2 SARMs, RAD 140. That's one of the bigger ones that help with performance. It has actually been shown to increase chemically in the brain aggression, which is pretty amazing, So like I said, the SARMs, they work. I'm not as big proponent because, like you said, Steve, you're having to get them online. There's all these combinations. The peptides, are pure. You can get them from a pharmacy, and you can do just fine that way.
My experience with SARM so far was we have one of the biggest bases, marine bases here. And right at the entrance of the marine base, there is a supplement store. And the guy told me that the day he gets the SARMs in, that the soldiers go crazy. They buy it all off in like one day. So many years ago, I tried RAD 140. But again, it was one of those phases where I finally started eating healthy and training more, and I gained a few pounds. So I tried to use it with females when they came from a very short, NPP cycle, 4 weeks. Then I put them on SARMs for 4 weeks to see if I can keep any of the gains, and the results were not very good. So I kind of got away from it.
There's just on those, there are nasty side effects. And so I would rather, if we're going to go from a testosterone perspective, I'd rather use the enclomiphene. If we're not using TRT replacement, I'd rather do that and use the kisspeptin like that, and then use peptides in combination. Because see, what's great from my perspective is if I get a gentleman coming in and their testosterone level is pretty high, but they're not feeling as good, I can go back and use clomiphene and a peptide. So I can put them on a great, even boost their testosterone up more, but boost their free testosterone, the bioavailability, put a little growth hormone releasing peptide or hormone in the system. Now they've got a nice performance and optimization program without ever using an overriding hormone. What a beautiful thing at the end of the day.
Instead of clomiphene, could somebody use like Novodex?
Doesn't work. It is not as efficient. Unfortunately, even though you are right, Novodex is a SERM. It doesn't have as big of effect on the LH production as Clomid does, and or in clomiphene. Now, tamoxifen or Novodex, I will use if the estrogen goes up a little, but the person's HDL, their heart protective cholesterol is really low, because you know your aromatase inhibitors like letrozole and letrozole have a major effect on HDL cholesterol by lowering it. Tamoxifen or Novodex per se doesn't have such a negative impact on the HDL cholesterol. So I can at least somewhat maintain that HDL at a decent level at best. Because remember, from a cardiac perspective, your HDL, your heart protective, does what's called reverse cholesterol transport. So what it's doing is taking the cholesterol from the periphery of the body, bringing it back to the liver so you can package it and then use it how it's supposed to be. And if your HDL is low, now you just got cholesterol sitting out in the periphery. It can oxidize, it can cause immune dysregulation and inflammation.
On an unrelated subject, do you believe that, or is there any truth that Proviron makes steroids work better?
I've heard it. I have not personally seen it, and in study-wise, I haven't seen that it makes it work better, because Proviron itself is still a DHT-based hormone. So I think what happens, you remember your DHT, so like your Proviron, Primo, Masteron, Winnie, and Anadrol, all those, they're going to be DHT-based, so you're going to get good, solid muscle gain without the water. You see what I'm saying? So like if you add a Proviron to something, say you are adding it to a testosterone-based or a 19 NOR-based, you're going to keep that more harder, tighter look with the Proviron. So I think it's synergistically, but I don't think it makes it work better. I think they all work together better like that.
I used to use a lot of Proviron in my days.
Oh, Proviron's good. It's a good, clean drug. Absolutely.
Interesting. Is that all on peptides? Is that all you have, JP?
Well, I'm good for now. Thank you. That was great.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You learned a lot.